Good morning and a warm welcome everyone to the Ricoh Anything in Print webinar series, which we've now been running for more than a year now. Today's event will be covering the aspects of wide format print and associated tools that can help you overcome the challenges of recent times and assist in a smooth and effective recovery. Last year, we also ran 2 events on the topic of large format and one discussing workflow automation. Links to all you can find in the handout section on this webinar. So just a couple of introductions first. My name is Tim Carter and I'm responsible for the commercial print business here at Ricoh in the UK. And I'm really pleased to be joined today by 3 of my colleagues and subject matter experts. Firstly, we've got Ujel, who's our large format sales specialist. We've also got Jason, software sales specialist, and Jeremy, finally, our workflow consultant and solutions architect. So between them all, they'll be able to give you a real full detailed insight into how to optimize your production costs with the right workflow automation tools for your business. This in turn will enable you to make better business decisions based on facts, allowing you to increase the number of large format jobs through your shop, meet SLAs, and know the cost and profitability of every single job. If you've got any questions during the webcast, you can submit them through the Q&A tool. We will try and answer as many of these during the webcast, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, they will be answered later via email. In addition, an on-demand version of today's recording will be sent to you after the event, and additional help materials are available as handouts. Please, we would encourage you to look at all the resources that you may find useful. Thanks. Quite a few sectors have remained strong over the last year. For example, publishing, transactional, packaging, pharmaceutical and labels have proved to be highly resilient, in addition to a number of sectors associated with wide format display and signage. IT strategies research companies suggest we can see changes in communication trends, where they're becoming more target and more relevant. And therefore, print service providers will have to respond by being able to offer more diverse print products, small and large format, textile, photo books, etc. And also respond to rapid turnarounds for these multiple diverse jobs. And linked to these changes is the need for automation and integrated workflows to enable this to happen. Simply put, any delay in the printing process is now a direct reflection in the inability of the business to meet deadlines and keep up with their customers' demands. With web to print industry growing in popularity, keeping up the market demands and orders becomes a full-time commitment for business owners. To fulfill the demands efficiently, the industry is pushing for further automation in the processes. For consumers, this is a welcoming update. The goal of these programs is to reduce dependency on manual processes. So I'd now like to hand over to Ujel, who's going to enlighten us further. Over to you, Ujel.
Thank you, Tim, and good morning, everyone. My name is Ujel Sali, wide format specialist. Customer demand drives technology, and Ricoh are proud to be in the forefront of the innovation that is driving this. As Tim said, customers want more demanding applications faster, cheaper, and sometimes in batches of only one. So how do we meet this demand? Well, we probably go out and buy some new equipment. So before we had LIFO printers doing high volume prints, and then the digital press came into being to handle the smaller batch size runs to cope with customer demand. Then people ventured into wide formats. It doesn't matter what sector you're in. If you went into wide format, you probably entered in the solvent area to do your general signage, to do vehicle wraps and so forth. Customers became a bit more demanding. They wanted different materials to be printed on. So, we're talking about fabrics and thinner materials and films and so forth. So the latex printer was born. So people went out and bought latex printer to meet that demand. These solvents and latex printers were used to print onto boards and mounted onto boards. But then the demand became higher. So people went out and bought UV flatbeds, print directly onto any substrate. And I do mean any substrate that is flat. So metals, plastics, wood, and so forth. And that cut cost and increased productivity. Then digital cutters were then used to actually add value to these prints. You can cut different shapes or cut multiple batches out of one sheet that you printed to increase productivity and reduce cost. And of course, finishes like laminators and flatbed laminators also helped in this. There's been a vast growth in fabric sublimation at the moment. So in terms of printing directly to fabrics for soft furnishings and soft signage, that's become very big. And also direct to garment, printing directly onto clothing such as t-shirt, caps, hats, socks, and so forth. So you may have ventured into the marketplace to buy this equipment to meet customer demand, which is all well and good. Thank you. But as we said at the beginning, wide format is quite unique in this area. There are other areas of cost that need to be associated with. I've done many demos where people ask me, what is the average ink coverage? What is the milliliter of ink used? And these are all very important questions in terms of feeds and speeds and the productivity of the actual equipment itself. But there are other elements within large format that need to be considered. One of those is like material requirements. Large format printing is exactly what it says. It does use very large materials. They're heavy. Where do you store them? That is cost. You also have different specialist printing areas like tiling. So if you wanted to produce a 1 meter high by 10 meter wide wallpaper, you'll have to do that in sections. And again, that takes knowledge and skill to know how to do that properly. And again, that adds cost. And how do you actually put this wallpaper up on the wall? That also needs managing as well. All these elements is what we can see. These are costs that we can actually measure and calculate and use. But there are other costs involved that we don't see. And these are very, very important. Thank you. So I'm going to use that traditional iceberg element where the ink costs and the cost of materials is above the waterline. We can see those, but what about the cost below that waterline? Every time we introduce new technology into our infrastructure, into our organizations, it adds complexity in terms of control and workflow. Estimating is absolutely crucial. To win a deal, you need to get the right price. You also need to make the right margin. So that also needs to be controlled. In terms of order entry, I like this part because it's right at the forefront of any process. You get graphic in. Is that graphic correct? Do you charge a customer for correcting it? What do you do at this stage? Inventory, I've already discussed in terms of materials. Do you hold materials? Do you buy them in? Is it just-in-time philosophy to save money? And scheduling, managing capacity, the right job for the right machine at the right speed at the right cost. How do you manage that when you're very, very busy in rush jobs? And client services, where's my job? I love that one. I go to Amazon Prime and see where my delivery is. It doesn't show me on the map, but I wish I did know. And I'm sure customers want to know where their job is. Can you tell them straight away where that is and breed confidence into what they're asking for? And of course, the most important is invoicing. Are you making the margins you think you are, or are you actually making a loss? Do you actually know? So in terms of to become efficient and improve your business financially, then all of these elements have to be addressed accurately. And this is what Ricoh can do for you or help you achieve, irrespective of what wide format systems or printing systems you have at present. Are you really making the margins you think you are? Is plant utilization optimized at every level? Are you running as efficiently as you can? To tell us more about how this can be achieved, I will now hand over to my colleague, Jason.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Ujel. You've certainly highlighted a number of areas, and it has been a challenging year. Many wide format businesses have been the first ones to be hit because you're either supporting retail, exhibitions, hospitality, and these are the sectors that have been really heavily hit. Many businesses have been forced to put many members of staff on furlough. So the challenges are you've got less work, you've got fewer people, and that puts a strain on the business, not just financially, but also trying to get jobs through the business as well. And as Ujel has touched on, when you look at the different parts of what you do in your business, there's multiple touch points, and people work in silos. That can be complex. It can be a situation where you're double entry of information between multiple systems, and that's a challenge. And many organizations have realized through COVID the gaps and some of the challenges in the business because they've had to experience it. they've had to be on the shop floor, they've had to be in production. Now, when we look at estimating, as Ugel highlighted, now it's more important to get it right. Estimating can get very complex, and once you estimate a job, even from 12 months ago, can be completely different to what we're doing today, because there's lots of different costs, lots of different challenges, and those have to be accounted. So when we look at estimating, is it something that can be made simplistic? Will it include all the things that we need as part of an installation, the cost of production? And those things, and the consistency is really important for an MIS and an estimating system. Once you win the business, fantastic, it's even greater news, but you've got to enter the order and set the order up. That could even be looking at buyouts, installation teams that are going to be through third parties. It could even be actually on-site visits. The key thing is that when you enter an ordering system, that again, transferring it from an estimate to an order can be a challenge in itself. And then have you got the inventory? Have we got the availability? Stocks are very difficult. We used to be able to get stock same day. That is a challenge nowadays. You do have to manage minimum, maximum stock levels, or even when you're going to actually produce the job, because you're going to have to buy things out. And I touched on earlier, when you're looking at installations, are you buying other components that are going to be part of that? So when you're bringing that together, you're now creating multiple steps which are within the business, and with fewer people becomes a challenge, especially when you're trying to pull it all together and schedule it, because it's not just one job, it's many jobs, and those fewer people are finding it challenging in the business. So having something that's giving you visibility, control over your cost, control over the activities that you're going to do, is something that more of our customers have been asking for, because those are some of the gaps that they're seeing. When we look at the costing side of this, it's really important. When you used to get lots of jobs into the system, and lots of people said, great, we're really busy, we're making great money. Now, at the moment, people are saying, well, each job that we get in, we need to make sure that we have the margins. We need to have accurate costing within the business. We can't just think, we'll just put a number in there. So getting the hold of all of those costs and managing them accurately is the difference between making good margin or small margin. And we all want to make great margins. Also managing your customers, allowing them to deal with you more easily. We've seen a lot of online businesses do very, very well throughout COVID. But what we're now having is that customers are now expecting to deal with print in very much the same way as Amazon. Have you received my order? Have I got the thank you? When am I going to get my order? Do you keep me updated when it's going to be delivered? And by the way, is it installed? So some of those things that your client services team have are now being pulled into a lot of production areas when you want them to be more proactive. But giving your client services team the tools to have the visibility and be able to, over a phone call, deal with a query or a question, or have a system where people can view through a portal where their jobs are, where they're up to, can certainly help. Now, as things get better, and it is encouraging when things open up on the 19th, all going well, we're going to see a lot of the businesses open up again. There's a lot more volumes. I think over the last month, what we've seen is it's not been that huge, massive demand growth, but we are seeing it come back now, which is very positive. And at the end of the day, we've still got to invoice and bill for everything that we do. And having an accounts package is all good and well, but what we want to make sure we do is all of those processes, all those things that we've costed, making sure that we invoice accurately. There are many organizations out there that historically, when it comes to invoicing, forget about, did we spend more time with the artwork? Did we do some reprints? Those sort of things were pretty much just said, well, it's within the job. But nowadays, you've got to account for everything that you're going to bill to a customer. And is it billable? Is it not billable? Is it a cost to what you're actually doing? But having visibility over all your processes in one place and pulling all that information together does give you real-time information. Even how did our machines perform when we did produce that job? How much ink did we use? How many substrates? Being able to access and see all of that information in one place in real time drives a lot more productivity and makes you more profitable. And those are some of the things that I want to be able to show you today through my colleague Jeremy. But thank you very much. Jeremy, over to you.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a quick sort of overview of Avanti Slingshot, which is Rico's MIS system. So I'm got about 25 minutes to kind of take you through some of those challenges that Jason and you, Joe, have just both spoken about. And so you can look at the system actually running live. I'm going to be bringing in some various different types of work into the system as an estimate, and then taking that through from the order stages. I'm going to be showing you where you can purchase some stock. I'm going to be looking at how we schedule the job. I'm going to then look at how we data collect stuff from the shop floor that we're doing that is not JDF or is not linked to a device, but it's a manual task that we might need to do. And then we'll look at the invoicing and shipping right at the end. So I'm going to try and take you through all that in a short space of time. So the first screen that you're looking at here is the Avanti Slingshot login screen. This enables me as a user to access the system with the rights and the role that I have within the business. So as you can imagine here, this will allow me to take me straight to the screen that I'm allowed to see. So there's loads of different roles that we can set up within the system, and there's lots of various different roles that obviously people have within a business. So this is my screen. I'm logging on, and you know, I'm the administrator, so as you'd expect, I can see everything. But for example, if the modules down this side that I'm just highlighting now are reduced, then obviously you've got different roles in the business, and you will only be able to see what your part of the business and it entitles you to see. So from my first screen, I've got a dashboard. On my dashboard, this is Jez's dashboard and my work to list. So it means that I'm linking directly to my CRM here because I've got some activities that I need to do. And this is my list of activities to do straight from the CRM. It could be some opportunities that I'm working on, or I could be working with colleagues on various different opportunities, and we've all got various activities to do within that opportunity as well. So once again, so the first part of this is transparency and visibility. So, you know, internally we're all a team. We all really need to know what each other's doing to make it work well. So one of the things that we like to say here is that Jason mentioned is that this is just one place for everything to come into. This is the hub of your business, and I can see exactly what myself or any of my colleagues are up to with a particular opportunity that we're working on. And we can extend that out further because we can then look at the jobs that are actually active within the business as well. So for example, if I'm working as sales or customer services and I want to see a clear view of where a job is, I have an area here where I can come into. I can choose the customer that I'm working on, because it might just be my customers that I'm enabled to see, not the rest of the business and my colleagues' customers. And it will give me a good overview of the system as to where anything is. So in any job that's being taken around the business, there are milestones, and the milestones will be completed in here as and when they're done. So we can quickly have a quick snapshot of exactly where every single job is within the business without having to go walking around the whole factory trying to find somebody with that job ticket to find out what's happening with that job. Okay, so visibility is key, and this can be done if I'm sitting in my car on the road as well, outside the customer, just about to visit them. So visibility is really key to this system and enabling you to all know and work as a team together. So one of the things that I'm going to start with here is I'm going to start with an estimate. Okay, within this estimate, I'm going to build some various different types of work, and I'm going to show you some various different ways of doing that as well. So I'm just going to create a new estimate, and we're going to say, let's be creative and call it today's webinar in here. And I'm going to choose my customer that I'm doing this estimate for. Okay, and within that customer, there will be a contact or contacts. So depending on who I'm doing this particular estimate for, I just obviously choose their name in here. Who's the sales from my point of view? So who's the salesperson and the service rep as well in here? And do I know the due date of the customer yet? I may do, I may not, but if I do, I can put in the due date here, and we can start working with that due date going forward if we want to. Who am I sending the invoice to, and who am I shipping it to? Could be two different addresses here. We've also got an area over here where we can create multi-shipments, which means, You know, if I had a spreadsheet that was going to 50 different destinations and quantities were going different to those destinations, I could absorb that spreadsheet into the system, and it would create those shipping addresses and those destinations for me within the system. And I can also do that manually with my mail drops as well. So I can create that manually or bring it in via a spreadsheet. So one of the first things that I'm going to do in here is I'm going to create an estimate on something. Okay, so what we've got in the system is we've got your knowledge that you've got in your heads and how you create estimates currently if you're not using an MIS. What we're doing is we're putting that all inside the system. So it means that, and I'm not saying, you know, anybody can just walk up and create an estimate, when in theory, that's where we want to try and get to, because it has been challenging, and because there may be less people in a business now, more people need to do probably more jobs. Okay, so one of the things that we've got in here is the ability to create some categories. And in my categories here, I've got a category called signage, and within signage, I've got something called signs on post. So I want to do some signs that are actually going to be installed on site on some posts. Okay, and in this particular case, I want 20 of them. So all I've had to do there is choose the category, within the category, the product, within the product, the quantity, and then add that into the system. And what that's done for me now is that's created me a line item in here with the cost of it. So I've got my pricing, okay, and I've got access to my calculator here, where anything in yellow is I can adjust that if I need to adjust that. So I can see my pricing broken out as a labor, substrate, purchases and materials, and the markup that we're currently running on all of those different areas within the business. So some of the key things to note here, if I go into the sections view, this is a breakdown of that line item that I've just brought in there. And I've got all of my milestones down here that are going to be done throughout this particular manufacturing of this of the signs that are going on the post. So one thing is manufacturing the print. That's great. We can all do that, and that's great. And we've got that in our business to be able to do. But the other thing is recognizing the external bill of materials that go with this as well. For example, this is going on some posts. So I want to be able to make sure that I'm not only estimating on the manufacturing of the print, but I want to know how much it's going to cost to get the posts in as well when it's finally going to be installed on site. But also I want to know the installation as well. So I've put in here a milestone that's going to be using a 3-person crew that's going to be installing this on site at the other end. Okay, so this is encompassing everything, not just the print part of it. And this is the key part, and this is the important part to note. It's encompassing everything, the materials that are going to go with it, the people that are going to go and install it on site. And so everything is built into this one estimate. The milestones down here that we build in, and the activities, tasks, whatever you want to call them, are up to you. They're created as you need them to make your business work. One of the other things that is key in here as well is as you, Dale, touched on, we need to allow the tiling. So if we can't, our machines don't print the full width of this particular product, we need to allow the overlap to be able to create the second half of the print or the third half of the print. So we need to be able to allow the tiling in here as well. And that's something obviously that's within the system, because this system is geared up very well for large format type of work as well. So all these kind of little terminologies that you're using in the wide format world are into the system, and we know where we can add this kind of information in. Okay, the other thing is that Jason mentioned on, and I'm just going to quickly add another task here, is what if I don't do a certain type of work in-house? So some of the things that I might need to do is I might need to do some buyout work. So I've got in here a particular task that is actually wide format buyout, which means to me internally, you can name this whatever you want. It means that I'm going to go out with any work that I can't do in-house that is associated with obviously large and wide format. So if I add that in as a particular task in here, what it means is I can go behind the scenes of that task and I can start to specify what I need to do. You know, I might not be able to laminate all posters, for example, that I could put in here. Okay, and I can see my suppliers down here and I can email them directly. Obviously I could bold this, I could make this more specific what I want in here, but I'm short on time and I'm going to rush through it. But I could email the specifications and everything that needs to be done to this part of the process to my suppliers. They will email me back and I could then in here choose the best supplier that I want to use and what their cost is going to be to do that particular type of work. and then I can recalculate that and associate that now with the estimate for that particular job. So when my customer receives that estimate letter, obviously down here I've got some buyout work now that's going to cost £60 from my supplier or suppliers, depending on who they are. Okay, so we're, like I said earlier, we're encompassing everything into one part of the job, and we've got nothing outstanding that we need to be able to do, and the estimate that the customer gets is for everything. Okay, it's the work done internally and externally as well. So what I'm going to do in here as well is I'm just going to go into my documents area in here, and I'm just going to add in some artwork, because I do have some artwork for this particular job. So, and I've got it early on, so I could do it at this stage, or I could do it at the artworks at the order stage, dependent on when I get the artwork. And I'm just going to bring in here a poster that I've got, that is one of these signs that's going to go on the post, and we'll upload it into the system and attach it to this particular job in here. Okay, so I've attached the artwork in here now, and the reason I've done that will become relevant as we go through the process here. So if I'm happy with everything here, and I've created my first estimate, I would then send that estimate off to my customer, and I could change my status, which means I could say now this is ready for the sales rep, which means in my case, I send this, choose this status here, and Jason from the system gets an email with an estimate letter to be able to forward onto his customer to let them know that that estimate letter is ready. Or alternatively, I could just direct it straight to the customer. Depends how you and your business want to work. Okay, we have got some really other cool stuff within the estimating side of things, like vehicle wrapping and all that kind of stuff. So you can imagine if you're doing a vehicle wrap, you may have the actual body of the vehicle, you may have the bonnet, you may have the back doors, you may have the left and right doors, you may have the wing mirrors. We can build that in as a kit and bring that information into the system very easily and very quickly as well. Okay, so time obviously that I haven't got to show you all that now, but obviously on another day, hopefully, if you wanted to look deeper into the system, I could go into that in more detail. So the other thing that I could quickly do now is if my customer needed a revision of this estimate, so for example, change the substrate, do something different to make the price a little bit cheaper or whatever, I can start creating revisions of that particular estimate as well. Okay, so I'm just going to say okay in this case, and what I can produce now up here is my estimate letter, and we've got some standard ones within the system, so it will just run me an estimate letter now. So this is the one that would have gone to an email of somebody, okay, straight out of the system, and this just shows off the actual estimate letter, breaking it down and giving me my total price there that I could email out to the customer. So the thing is now, if this comes back and everybody's happy and we can move on to the next stage, all I need to do is I would come into my sales orders in this part, and within my sales orders in here, I would copy the estimate that I've just created. I could search for it. It will be top of the list in my case, and I could bring that estimate now through as a order, so a live order into the job. And yes, we want to go to the due date, and we can create the estimate. So from the estimate now, I've created the job order. So now we have the similar screen. So it's keeping everything, the continuity there, so everybody can see that the system, you're not jumping out of screens that are not familiar to everybody. And we have now a job number that is ready now to take through into production. So here you could see where I uploaded that particular artwork. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send a proof off. So I'm going to send that proof off to the customer now to check, because we may have done some pre-press work, we may have done some artworking for them, whatever it might be, and I've just sent that off now for an email check. So directly from the system, again, I've not had to open up my email to upload a PDF into my email. I've sent it directly out of the system to that customer. Okay, so the customer then would receive the email, and I'll get that in a second, and we'll have a look at that. So in my sections view, we have all of the same information in here about what we've just done and what we're going to do in production and in manufacturing throughout the business. And if I have the rights to, still in the sales order view, because this order is still in an open status, I can still edit this if I need to at this point. So if you've got the role and you've got the rights to be able to do this, you can still edit it at this point. So I've just heard my email ping off. So in my email at the top of the list, I've just had an email that I can click on the link. That link will open up now in Chrome in my case, and it will give me a visualization of that artwork that we've produced for the customer, and the customer can come into here and approve it or reject it, looking at various different things in here as well. So they can look at the media, the crop, the trim, the bleed, the artwork size. So there's various things that they could be looking at. They could be turning on and off colors if they wanted to look at it as kind of like a progressive to make sure everything looked okay as they split the colors out. They can look at the document properties and the fonts that are associated with it, but also the approval and reject button here. So on approval, I'm going to give it approval, say all okay. We'll move it on to the next stage of the manufacturing milestones that we've got in the system. So that's just been approved. That will be updated within the system. Internally, I will receive another email to say, yep, we're all good, we can move on. If it was rejected, it would obviously clearly mark that it was rejected, and there would be any comments built into here as well, so that we're working from one place. We're not risking sending emails off via an Outlook or via wherever we're sending emails and risking sending and receiving the wrong artwork to be able to print. We're trying to keep all the artwork and everything into one place in here. So we've got some actions up here that can move it on to the next stage. Okay, the next stage means that, am I ready to release it into production, basically? And we have two areas to do that. Release for prep. So that means that I don't want to put it into full production yet, but I want to put it into pre-press, if you like, because we need to do some work for artwork. Say we hadn't done this artwork yet, but we still need to do it. So we could just release it to that stage, and that could be worked on from our design services team. Or I can release the whole order. The whole order will actually be then moved into the system to do everything. And some people now want to release the order and invoice at this point as well, and we can do that as well. So rather than waiting for my system, which will naturally invoice after it's been shipped, we can release an invoice after we've sent the order into production. You'll notice down here as well that that order has been approved, and the comments that I put on there is all okay, you know, so we can access the comments area if there was any comments that we need to do. Okay, so the artwork's all been completed. And I've just had that email. You've probably heard my email ping as well. I'm now going to release this order. So we're going to release this order into production. And when it goes into production, the first thing it's going to ask me is, do I want to print my job ticket? So again, we have reports of job tickets in here in the system, and I can quickly open up and just have a look at my job ticket. And my job ticket will give me the client information, the printing information, finishing information, and shipping information in here as well. So a nice simple little job ticket that I've got in my system, which is barcoded as well, because I may want to be starting activities on the shop floor using a scanner, and I can do that using the barcodes that are on the job ticket here. Okay, so this job is now obviously ready to go. It's in a release state. The release state means that I can no longer edit anything in here, because everything's kind of locked down now. The only way I can do that is to use what we call our change orders. So if this particular customer came back to me now saying, we do need to change something, something's wrong, there's too many, we don't need 20 anymore, we need 15 on the quantity, I would have to open up a change order, which in turn would open up an acknowledgement letter to them to be able to sign anything off that I'm doing to change that particular order. So it keeps, again, everything in one place and keeps the history of everything that's happening. Obviously, we have our history tab here as well that's monitoring everything that's happening. We can now see a clear list of view of all of the milestones that need to be done in manufacturing, and we can see here the time needed to be spent in each department on that particular task that's going to be done. So where's that gone now? So that has gone into the whole wide world of production. Okay, and in my case, it's gone into my scheduling. So in my scheduling board, I will have under here, ready to schedule, because I've stopped it at this point, a job number ST0218, which is the signs on post, which is what I've just released into production. So that's ready to be scheduled onto my scheduling board. But before I do that, I'm just going to jump into my purchasing, because as Ujel mentioned earlier on, behind the scenes now, there's all sorts of people running around doing lots of different jobs. But what I want is I want my system to tell me what I need to do. So if my minimum, my stock levels are low because my minimum and maximums, or my minimums have been reached on particular stuff that I'm holding in my inventory, consumables, etc., I want to know that, and I want the system to let me know that. And that's something that we can do in here. So within my inventory, I will have a list of all of my items, everything that I currently work with for every single customer, whether that be a consumable like I just mentioned, or whether it be a finished goods that I'm holding something on the shelf for a customer and they're picking them off using a web to print system or whatever they're using, and that information coming straight into the system and picking them off the shelf as and when they need them. But you have to set and manage that obviously within the system, and the more you set and manage that in the system, the more transparent the system becomes and helps you day to day with any stock that's needed, and hopefully gets rid of any times when you walk up to that shelf to pick that stock off and it's not there anymore because nobody's told you, nobody knows that it's run out, and you know the scenarios that obviously some people can run into on a daily business, time and time again. So what we've got in our purchasing module here is something called planned purchasing. This allows me to open up a various filters here that allow me to look at certain things in the business. So I could just filter out all of my work in progress that's currently in my system per supplier. So just look at what's in progress and just pick out anything needed for a particular supplier. I can do that on sales orders as well. So I could just look at a range of sales orders that I'm particularly interested in. And I can do it on the various different classes. So classes would be stuff like finished goods, stock items, and all that kind of stuff that I set up in the system. I could look at those as well. So I'm going to leave all of my filters on, and I'm going to create a new plan. So that plan now that's been created here is telling me that for all of the work that we've currently got in progress in the business right now, I need to order from these different suppliers these items. Okay, so it's helped me out in respect that I don't have to go running around looking. It's told me exactly what I need. If I highlight any of these items, it's told me it will link to the jobs that it's linked to. So in my case, it's the job that I've just created. I do need to order some more posts. So I know that I need to raise that purchase order of those different posts, and that's so on. So if I click on any of these now, it will link to the source that it's linked to in here. So what I can do is I can create my my particular purchase order from here. So I can generate the purchase order to my 3 different suppliers in this case, raise it to those 3 suppliers and print off my purchase orders, or email them to the purchase order that the suppliers, obviously the purchase order that I'm just creating now. I'm just going to show you the report, but you can see here I've got 3 different reports to 3 different purchase suppliers that are going to be doing that type of work for me. You'll notice this one, in this case, is the actual laminate all posters. So this is the actual buyout that I asked for within that order right at the beginning. Okay, so it's raised me my purchase order and I would send that off to that particular supplier. So again, those have been released now, and those are out with the suppliers, and they would be awaiting receipt of those on the door. And obviously we receipt our purchase orders in here, and we would create our new receipts from the actual ones that I've just created. So if I go to my list, I'll see the one that I've just created at the top here. We would select that, and I would just tell the system how many I've received. So I could give it a reference and say that this is my reference number. I want to receive it directly into my stock, and I'm receiving 65, and I update the system and I receive it into the system. Okay, so I would receive that into the system and it would update my stock, in turn kicking the system off, enabling me to carry on with production, because we will obviously know if we're waiting on any items that haven't yet been purchased, especially when it comes down to the scheduling board. So back to the scheduling board. So if I go back into my scheduling, so ready to schedule, I can release this particular item onto the scheduling board now. And once it hits the scheduling board, so it's been added to my scheduling board, I've got various different things that I can do in here now. So as a scheduler, I may have wanted to have done some work in here. So for example, some of the stuff I could have done in here is I might have wanted to have started to optimize my schedule board on a particular substrate or on a particular device. So I can gang all of that, kind of optimize those together so that I can make sure that if I'm using a role on a particular large format device, that role can be used for 10 jobs rather than take that role on and off the system all the time or on and off that device. I'm using that role to do all the jobs that are using that particular material. The scheduling board itself is a Gantt chart, and that Gantt chart is in various different guises. So for example, in my wide format here, I can see my work pool family, if you like, of all the devices I've got in my wide format department. And that not only includes devices, but it also includes people as well. And you can see in here, I've got the installation guys here as well, because they're part of this schedule, obviously. So internally, if we're doing that, our own scheduling, they are part of my team that I need to schedule. So I'm looking at it as a week point of view at the moment. I could look at it as a month to see all the jobs that I've got planned for the month. I could look at it as a resource, so I can see individual resources here, and I can see here myself and my colleague Aaron have got some work to do on various different orders that are coming through into the system. I've also got a timeline view, so each job and the now time, which is the red one here. Okay, and anything that goes past that obviously is going to be late, so that's why mine are red in this case. Okay, so obviously I'm not linked to anything live, so I will have more red ones than anybody who's live in production. But this is just giving you a view of the actual schedule and where we are today with that particular schedule. Obviously there's lots more to show in here, and we could show that, but obviously time restrictions, I can go into that in more detail. From a production point of view, on the shop floor, I'm just going to go quickly to my shop floor view. And in here, I log in again as an employee. They have a slightly different view because this is the shop floor data capture screen that they would be using. I would come into here and I would look for my job, which was ST00218, and I would find that job in the system. Oh, let's just take the 0 out. Here it is. And I would select that particular job from the system, and the section or the part of the job that I'm going to work on, this only had one line item inside it, and I'm going to run the VUTEC in my case. So I'm going to start that particular operation. Okay, so yes, I'm going to start the operation, and away it goes. So that operation now is being worked on in the background. So for example, now client services get a phone call, where's my job? It's actually being worked on the VUTEC at the moment. So that transparency and that visibility becomes apparent when we start using the tools like we've got here. Okay, and when we complete these milestones, okay, so we can complete this milestone, say that it's all been completed, and now that would say in the job itself that that's been done and it's moved to the next stage in the system. On here as well, because I've been working on my data collection screen, one of the nice things that it does in here is it end my shift. If I end my shift, or I want to create myself an end of shift report, which is like a docket, a timesheet, whatever you want to call it, and it's calculated the time that I've been spending over my shift working on various different jobs, and given me a list of all the jobs that I've worked on and the time I've spent on all those jobs. So from an accounts point of view, again, it's in one place. The accounts go to the timer, the shift reports. They can calculate any overtime, etc., that's needed to be calculated into the pay slips going forward. So I'm now just going to come back into the main system itself in here now, and we just log back in. Let's go and just quickly have a look at the jobs that are in the system. And if I go to the job view and we do a quick search for 218, which was the job that we've just been working on, which is here, you'll see if I go to you'll see already some actual costs coming back, because that's the time that I just spent on that job, just briefly, just printing it. The milestone itself has been completed here. So the VUTEC work has actually been completed in here. It's all been done, and you can scroll across and it will say who did it. So it sees the date, the time when I did it, and it was completed by myself. Okay, so the part has been, the print part has been completed. So everything's been completed in that respect. The next thing that I would do is I would ship this particular job. So I would go to my shipments, and I would create a new shipment in here. And if I go to 218 again, that particular order that we just did, I'll just bring that up. Just bear me 1 second. It's just in the list here. So what I can do now is I can create a shipment of that particular order. And here we have the shipment, and we can make sure that we can create that shipment. So we'll ship it all in one box. You could ship it in multiple boxes. You could ship it in tubes. You can ship it however you want, obviously, on a pallet. It depends on you, but obviously for speed and time here for myself, I'm just going to ship it all. Ship it all in one box, confirm and print the actual delivery details off. And again, you get a report there to run the actual delivery note where it's going to. Just quickly, there you go, there's your report for that. And that particular shipment has gone and ready to be shipped with our courier that we're currently going to be using. I've also just had an email to let me know that as well in the background that shipment's been done. And also on top of that, to finally finish it, we would go to the invoicing. And again, I would create an invoice, and it would be an invoice of that particular job because it's already there, because it's been shipped, because my system, that's the way my system works. We'll generate that invoice. The invoice is here, and as Ujel said, everything's been distributed around all of the various different departments, the different general ledger codes. Any commission had by any salespeople is very visible in here. The cost center analysis, so the gross sales for each department and how much each department made on profit as well. We would then release that as either a pro forma or a final invoice to the customer, and that is the full cycle of an order from end to end. And I know that was quick, but thank you, and hopefully you'll I'll see you again to go into a little bit more depth. But thank you, and back to Tim.
Jez, thanks very much. And in a relatively short space of time, I think it's fair to say that was really informative and really intuitive. So thanks for taking us through a whistle-stop tour of Avanti Slingshot. So I hope you found this first-hand advice and information interesting. And please remember, we're all here to help should you need more information, guidance or advice. And we would genuinely welcome the opportunity to follow up and discuss our extensive range of products and solutions in more detail. So please do get in touch via the normal channels and also online to download the content from today, plus an extensive library of content to help you drive your business, thrive and prosper. So let's move on now to the Q&A session of today's agenda. And thank you, you have been submitting questions whilst our panelists have been talking. So the first, if I can just invite the guys back on, the first question I'd like to ask, and I think, Jez, I'll direct this one at you. So the question is, how long does it take to implement such a solution?
Okay, so yeah, so it's obviously, as I've just talked and showed there, that this is the heart of anyone's business. So we need to make sure that we capture all of the information when we're building these systems within your businesses. And we would say anything between 6 and 9 months, dependent on how much time and how much you can put into the system as well. Obviously, we will be there to manage the project with you, but it's the time that you can give to us as well that helps us drive that quicker. So we say really 6 to 9 months. Okay, if we're honest, they may creep into 12 months, but we try to push it to be one of those 6 to 9 months.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question, Jason, I'll probably direct to yourself. How quickly can I see a return on investment?
Yeah, I think given the situation that we've had, a lot of businesses are resizing. Either they've taken a lot of resource out because it's been going through furlough, but now they're looking at, well, how can we give the tools, and a return on investment is potentially calculated by people. So do we put the tools in place that can help us drive the business forward, but potentially not bring everybody back? It's a difficult thing to do, but also around how we're going to cope with the growth in business. Have we got the systems in place? So when we look at implementing the solution, the ROI on this could be 3 or even 6 months, depending on what modules and what it actually does for the business. Many businesses find that because it's very manual, they choose a number of modules that include scheduling, and they drive more efficiencies, they drive more automation. Typically, we find that this can improve everybody's day-to-day workload by about 30% more productivity. So the ROI can be quite compelling. It's different for lots of different people, but we're happy to go on site, have a look at a discovery, and assess what the ROI would be for each customer.
Okay, thanks. And maybe just another question to you, Jason. Clearly, the solution that Jez showcased today was pretty comprehensive. And the question is this a complete system that you have to buy? So I'm assuming the question is it complete or is it modular?
Yeah, it's a modular system, and as I was alluding to earlier, different organisations have got different challenges. Some people are entering into online business and they want a web to print. They want to reduce a workflow of double entry of information. They also want to streamline what they want to do. So again, it's very modular, and that can also look at how big or how small the system is. It can also look at the timeline for implementation. I mean, you could have some customers approach it in a way where they take a portion of it to address the challenges that they've got today, and then go into the roadmap of adding more modules in the future. So yes, it is modular, and again, it's sized for different types of customers, the number of users, and the different types of modules.
Okay, thanks. Ujal, one for you. Is Ricoh wide format technology third party or your own?
That's a good question, actually. Believe it or not, it's our own. So we've been making print heads now for the major OEMs for the last 30 years. And Ricoh have now embarked on a new innovative path, is to make our own equipment. So we have our own flatbeds, we have our own latex printers. In fact, even the RIP that runs these machines, Colorgate, we own that company as well. It's now a Ricoh company. So as of today, we can offer a complete solution, a complete workflow from MIS, all the way through to equipment, all the way through to servicing and support from one company, which is Ricoh.
Great, thank you. Jez, I think this is the final question. So I have a number of different printers. How can I integrate MIS with them all?
Yeah, so with Avanti Slingshot, obviously we have if the printer is JDF compatible, we do have various different printers that we can link to, and it's as Ujal just mentioned, it's mainly about the front end and the RIP. So if that RIP is compatible with us, and we do have a long list of various different ones, we're kind of agnostic in that respect, that we can link to with JDF, so we can drive directly out of the system into those printers with the JDF information, you know, the imposition type, how it's going to be laid on the sheet, which would then take back into the system the ink usage, the time it took to print the job as well. So if it can be, you know, we have a list, we can check that out. As Jason said, on Discovery, we have a big long list of various different printers. If we don't have it within the list of printers, we have lots of various different ways and technology and people inside Ricoh that could help make that work as well.
Great, thanks, Jez. And I think that concludes the questions that have been submitted. So Jason, Jez, Ujal, thanks a lot for participating today and sharing that information with us. And I'd now like to sort of formally close the session and extend my gratitude, or our gratitude, for everyone attending today. We do appreciate your time and your efforts, and we hope that today has been informative and interesting. And before I formally close, I would encourage you to participate in the online survey that will be visible once the formal session is concluded. That feedback is really invaluable to us, so we would like you to participate in that if you possibly can. So thank you again for your attendance, and have a great day. Cheers.